Firstly, thank you for inviting me to present an update on sustainability at UAL. The last time I gave such an update was back in early 2016. Since then, both the situation and the ways we understand it have changed significantly. I was due to give an update in March this year, but that meeting was cancelled just as the first lockdown began, in a bid to control a virus that spread to humans from wild animals in degraded tropical forests far away. While sustainability implies continuity, emergency implies change. So today I'll briefly highlight the key changes over the last 5 years, leading to an exciting initiative at UAL. In November 2015, following a student and staff campaign that I proposed and supported, UAL announced that it would divest its endowments of £3.9 million from fossil fuels. This was great news, as it showed that staff and students can work together to deliver transformative pedagogy, and that research can guide our university in its approach to the defining issues of our time. As well as pledging to divest from fossil fuels, UAL went further by signing the United Nations Principles for Responsible Investment. In December 2015, the Paris Agreement aimed to limit global heating to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, and to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees. In October 2018, the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change issued a special report urgently calling for global heating to be limited to 1.5 degrees to reduce deadly threats to wildlife, food supplies, water availability and human health. In May 2019, the UN Science Policy Platform on Biodiversity warned that 1 million species face extinction, and they called for transformative change, which they defined as a fundamental, system-wide reorganisation across technological, economic and social factors, including paradigms, goals and values. In July 2019, the UK Climate Change Act of 2008 was amended, committing the UK government by law to achieve net zero emissions by 2050. In September 2019, UAL declared that it is responding to the climate emergency. From October 2019, supported by Jeremy Till, a series of assemblies were held at CSM and across UAL, in which students, staff and guests debated how UAL should respond to the climate and ecological emergency. As part of one of the working groups, I proposed to the Assembly that UAL now needs a business model which would connect ecological regeneration with social justice in a process of cultural transformation. To achieve this, I proposed that we need to connect decarbonisation with decolonisation. As the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution, Britain has a particular historical responsibility for removing carbon from the atmosphere. While Britain's imperial history leaves it with a unique ethical responsibility for the project of decolonisation. The climate crisis, as we know, is impacting first and worst on the people who did the least to cause it. While London's position in the global economy is built on its accumulation of wealth as capital of the British Empire, which was powered by slave labour and fossil fuels. I told the Assembly that Mark Carney had just warned that the global financial system has already invested in fossil fuel projects that will heat the planet by over 4 degrees, bringing a sea level rise of 9 metres or more, and threatening the stability of the climate. The Financial Stability Board set up the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, which developed a methodology to test the resilience of business models in a climate-constrained world. The task force identified 4 elements around which organisations should disclose their climate impacts and their vulnerabilities. Looking at risk management, The task force explores not just the physical risks of climate breakdown, but also the transition risks posed by policies to cut greenhouse gas emissions, and the reputational risks to businesses that fail to take adequate action. I told the Assembly that, like many universities, UAL's business model depends on international recruitment, which locks in unsustainable emissions from air travel and leaves us vulnerable in an increasingly climate-constrained world. In February 2020, the UK Court of Appeal ruled that the third runway at Heathrow is not legal because the government had failed to assess the expansion against the Paris Agreement temperature limit of 1.5 degrees. This ruling established that the Paris Agreement is enforceable in law. When COVID-19 struck, Jeremy Till again supported the climate assemblies, this time in regrouping as a Climate Emergency Network, an online platform for staff and students to share ideas and resources. He also set up a Climate Action Committee, which will report directly to the Executive Board. I recommended that the committee's terms of reference should include using science-based targets, and I'm delighted and relieved that this proposal was accepted. Here's why. The Science Based Targets Initiative was established by the UN Global Compact, the Carbon Disclosure Project, the World Resources Institute, and the Worldwide Fund for Nature, so it's rock solid. By using science-based targets, we commit to carbon reduction in line with what the latest climate science deems necessary to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement. It gets better. Science-based targets draw on the work of the Stockholm Resilience Institute, which identified 9 planetary boundaries in the Earth system. While the amber zones show the degree of ecological overshoot, the green zone at the centre of this diagram designates a safe operating space for humanity. Kate Raworth developed this safe space for humanity, proposing a safe and just space for humanity, which is within the ceiling of ecological limits and based on the social foundation of human rights. The UN Principles for Responsible Investment, the science-based targets, the planetary boundaries, and the safe and just space for humanity all align with the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The Stockholm Resilience Institute has proposed a new way of working with these goals so that the economy serves society and evolves within the safe operating space of the planet. So by committing to science-based targets, all the different parts of UAL's response to the climate and ecological emergency, including carbon literacy training, workshop practices, curriculum development, estates and operations, and the business model, all of these areas can be integrated, coherent and proportionate. This opens the way, I think, for UAL to reach out to external individuals, communities and organisations to form new partnerships and projects. But this approach isn't prescriptive or coercive, and it doesn't aim to make everything homogeneous. I think it's more like a map or atlas, perhaps like Google Earth, something that we can all use in different ways because it allows us to position ourselves in relation to each other and to what science tells us has to be done. Thank you for listening.